important, very relevant, and distinguishes us from our competitors. The other important thing goes to the Red Hat, and in the sense we talked about Kubernetes. What it is, I mean, for those who are not aware of these, so what's happened over the years, you have VM, but now we want to actually create Docker containers. And Docker containers are a lot lighter than the VM quite quickly. But the problem with these aspects is you want a framework that actually helps and supports them. So what Red Hat has developed is something called the OpenShift. And what that does, it gives you the mechanism to say, okay, well, this is a framework, these are the hardware I have, I don't want to actually interact with this. It's more of a, you can look at it as an operator, or in a sense, you don't interaction. You want to say, I want these requirements, go and do it, and I don't want to get involved in it. And this is what it does, you give it the hardware, you specify the requirements you want, you hit the execute button, it goes out, it looks at the hardware, it partitions the data, the actual nodes for you, and it spins up some nodes. So if you say, well, I want 6 nodes in my cluster, or 100 nodes in my cluster, you give it the actual infrastructure, it goes out, it looks at the hardware, it designs it, basically cuts the actual number of cores, gives you the amount of RAM that you specified, and then it continues to operate. And then what that does is that if a node fails, there's no need for human interaction, it does that automatically in the system itself. So this is something that you'll see quite a lot, you'll hear about Kubernetes quite extensively. And what Red Hat has done is created this operator, the OpenShift. And what we've done, we've worked with Google and also Red Hat to ensure we've launched the Kubernetes. It's been GA, I think, for the last month now. We've done a lot of conferences with Red Hat around this. So it's a very important thing. If you look at Amadeus, they're using OpenShift. If you look at Emirates, they're using OpenShift. All these companies and organizations that are moving to the digital transformation are using this type of framework. If you look into this, a slide to show what our customers use this, whether it's a web service, whether it's an application. The requirement is that I don't want to depend on the hardware. I want to spin up this service, I want to spin it up in basically a couple of minutes. In the past, if you wanted hardware, you would wait several weeks or months to get this. Say, for example, you want to spin up some more data nodes, you're able to do that. If you want to spin some more index nodes, you're able to do that quite dynamically, and there's flexibility. So the thing is, you also will see in the market now something called microservices. And what that is that it says to you, I don't want to have a big system, I want to break down my little services. So if you look at Amazon, when you buy something on Amazon, it has multiple microservices. So the first microservice is your login, the second microservice is your profile, the third microservice is basically a target advertisement. So they have lots of microservices working with each other. And the reason behind that, it increases productivity and performance. So you have a microservice, you have a development team that focus on that. When that's done, you have other development teams that can work in parallel to develop that. So in the past, you have like this Scrum or waterfall model. Now it's all about microservices and being able to actually run at the same time in parallel and then build a system in the end. So here it just shows you that what they want to do is to have different systems, profile management. Again, with Couchbase, it's quite powerful with the XDCR, so you're able to push your data to wherever you want in more or less real time. The number you do an operation, that data is transferred across the queue to a different data center. So the thing is that I've talked quite a lot about technical aspects. The next section I'm going to talk about is 2 parts: use cases, which I think will be quite interesting and relevant for you, and then a little part about the mobile, because mobile has become quite popular. I can process that information for you. Now with these guys, they are very, obviously the logo is very powerful and very important. For them, they need a technology that can support them for mission critical, no downtime at all. They can't afford to have any downtime at all. So what they've done, they evaluated all the vendors out there, what they're offering in a sense, competitors, and then they selected Couchbase. The only NoSQL vendor in Apple at the moment is Couchbase. We've been there since September 2013, and we've been operating across the infrastructure. So what they wanted is that they wanted scalability, performance, and also the replication across multiple data centers. So what they have 8 data centers across the globe, and basically strategic locations. So if I'm now in Saudi Arabia, what it does is data center. If I go back to London, or clearly to the nearest data center in Europe. Find that they'll want to be a microsecond response time. So if, for example, I log on from here and the authentication goes all the way to San Francisco, that's around, there's nothing that you can do because it's just pure physics. The distance is pure physics. They want something that's close by to be able to operate that. But at the same time, they want to replicate that data that you brought or you've done or changes to other data centers. So the moment you move to a different data location, that data is available. So they're using Couchbase for a considerable amount of years now. They've been quite happy with the performance. And then now what they've done, they've decreased the Oracle. In some customers, you'll see either A, in a sense, a greenfield project, where it's a brand new project while they're using Couchbase, or some legacy, a massive big bang where you just change everything in one go. It's an incremental process. So what they've done is that they added Couchbase on top of the actual Oracle infrastructure, started to they build the confidence, and once they build the confidence, they gradually reduce the Oracle infrastructure. And that's what we've seen a number of users. They will not go and just adopt it straight away. Some customers that are startups, etc., will go with Couchbase. If you are got a system where you have billions of profiles on that, the tendency is to actually do go a gradual step, and this is the approach that they've taken within this project. The other one, which is again with the Apple, they're quite secretive about their technologies. If you try and Google it, you won't find anything. But with the PayPal, if you try and Google Couchbase and PayPal, you will find that information available. The senior architect will talk extensively why they chose Couchbase, the reasons behind it, and again, it's the agility, the performance, and the flexibility. So with these guys, what their biggest challenge was is that they have a lot of profiles, they have a lot of customers across the globe, and the moment you do an interaction, they need to actually respond to that customer and need to understand that customer. So they want to have that 360 view of that customer. So the moment you buy something, they keep historical information about that user. So it's bought basically, for example, a laptop or a bag or a shirt, etc., or shoes. They want to keep that profile about that individual. What's his hobbies? What does he like to do in the weekend? You do a transaction, they store that information. So the moment you do another transaction, if there's offers around there, they'll target that individual, because what they want to do, they want to upsell and cross-sell. Because if they have that information about you, how your behavior is, they're able to actually sell you more products. The key thing behind this is that they don't want to do that advertisement later on, 2 hours or a day later. They need to do that in real time, where you're not in that shopping center. So if you go to a place in a shopping center, you bought something, they know you, there's an offer, and they know you like that type of basically product, they'll target you there and then to be able to ensure that they upsell and cross-sell. So they're using Couchbase to have multiple data centers across to do that information. With these guys, they went straight away with Couchbase because they had a new requirement, and they went straight in within Couchbase for that. So you have different trends of customers and different behaviors. Some will go straight away, some will go incremental. Another one is Viber. Viber is quite interesting. What they've done is that they predicted that their growth will be, for example, X. What they have done, they've achieved quite exponential growth. They started off developing their own product. That wasn't successful. They went to our competitors. Again, that lasted for 6 months. The biggest challenge that they said, the CTO and the CEO, they said we can't constantly change technology. We need a technology that's stable and that can actually take us to the next 5 to 10 years and is able to scale on demand. So with Viber, what they've done, they've chosen Couchbase. Now, if your entire infrastructure is based on Couchbase, from the moment you log on, the profiles, the coding, etc., it's all powered by Couchbase. Again, if you go to Google, type Viber with Couchbase, you'll see the architect explain that the painful journey that they went through. But now, basically, in the sense, now they're using Couchbase, things have improved quite dramatically. Again, this is just a re-emphasis of the results. They're using Amazon, they wanted to slash costs, improve performance, and that's what Couchbase can offer. As I pointed out before, just on bare metal, VMs, and now also on Docker containers. So those are customers, a lot of customers out there. We'll talk about aspects. I mean, I can go on forever. I can talk about LinkedIn, I can talk about Visa, I can talk about Experience, Discovery, Diners Club. There's a lot of customers that are using this. What I've done, I've selected some key ones. The other aspect that I have now is basically the mobile aspect. And this is something that we offer, none of our competitors offer. In the sense, it's a mobile edge. So if you try and look at the aspects of what customers want, the biggest challenge that customers have these days is that a lot of you want to be able to interact with the application, and you want to do that on the mobile. If you don't have network connectivity, your application will freeze, it won't work. And that becomes a challenge because if you have field engineers that work in oil rigs and they need to actually profile that data, need to capture that information, and they need to be able to actually process that. If you are depending on the internet, then you're not able to actually use that. So it's going to cost you a lot of manpower, a lot of hardware kit. So what we have some customers who are using mobile devices where they go out into the field, they capture the information, they store it on these basically devices. So it's not a human, it's basically a device that monitors the health of the oil rigs. It captures that information and then periodically has satellite connectivity and pushes that. So instead of having a manpower on there, you have now devices that capture that information. Those are the health checks. But the biggest challenge with these aspects that customers are facing is that they back-end systems, they want a system that can integrate with their current existing systems, or the key aspects is to be able to work offline. And that's a key requirement. So if you look at UPS, most of you probably have used that, they are using Couchbase Mobile to track the entire parcel. They want to know where that delivery guy is, at what point, where the GPS is. So if you call up and say, well, my parcel hasn't been delivered, in the past they wouldn't know. It would be quite difficult to have to actually track it. Now they can just log on and say, okay, based on that information, your parcel should arrive within an hour. There's been some delay, there's been an accident in the traffic. We can see the exact pinpoint of where the driver is. So you want that capability to be able to say to the customers, we're providing you a good experience in the sense that you can track the entire point from point 1 to point N of where your parcel is. Also, in the UK and in Europe, you have something called like, Just Eat, which is similar to Uber Eats. Again, they want to track exactly where that basically delivery guy is, why is it being delayed, etc. And they use the mobile capability to be able to track the pinpoint of that individual. So if you see here, there's a lot of components in the sense of a Couchbase Lite. What that Couchbase Lite offers you is the mechanism to actually store the data locally, be able to process it, and then when you have network connectivity, you're able to hack the backend systems through something called a sync gateway. So what it does is that it reads the actual data, it processes. Once you actually process that information, if you don't have network connectivity, it's fine. So if you look at the banking guys that we're dealing with at the moment, they're saying to us that every time the customer logs in, we have to hit our backend system, which is putting a strain on our system, because sometimes all they want to do is just look at the historical transaction. So stuff like that, historical static data, you can push that to the local device, and the customers can log on without having to go to the backend systems. Only when there's a transaction that's committed and you need to have network connectivity are you able to actually connect to the backend systems you have. And the synchronous gateway, and the sync gateway resolves conflicts and ensures that if you have multiple channels or multiple users, you're taking that data, that sync gateway will deal with the business logic behind that. And then you have Couchbase that we talked about earlier on. So the thing is here, this is just a stack. I mean, I'm not going into much detail around this. All it's just saying to you is that you have the Couchbase server as the backend systems, you have the sync gateway as the middleware core, and then you have the Couchbase Lite as an interface to that. Again, with the actual Couchbase Lite, it's very easy to use. If you're able to use the actual Couchbase server APIs, you're able to use that quite easily. And again, there are transferable skill sets. Here, this is just some sort of animation. If you're using the cloud, everything's perfect, no problems, no hassle, etc. The moment you don't have network connectivity, what happens, it goes into an infinite loop, it starts to say, well, I don't have network connectivity. And that's quite important that you don't want to have this, especially if you have, for example, we have field engineers. So we have British Gas in the UK, where they go and fix your boilers or they go and fix a component in your house. And they need to be able to process that. They can't say to the customer, oh, sorry, I have to come back tomorrow because I have no network connectivity. They need that information to be able to process that. So the thing is, what you'll end up having is, sorry, I haven't got any network connectivity, try again. And that's something you can't afford to have because, again, there's a cost associated with that. With the field engineers, if they have to come to your house 3 times or 4 times, A, you're going to get dissatisfied with that service, B, it's going to be quite costly, and C, is not satisfactory at all. So what you want to be able to do is that you want to be able to connect to your system once you have network connectivity for Sync Gateway. So you download the data for that customer overnight, The guy goes and processes it. If it has network connectivity, it connects. If it doesn't, it's completely fine because you have that profile of the user. You're able to get the signatures. If you want to take a picture, you're able to do that. So these are some examples. Basically, General Electric, if you look at the US, again, these guys won an award for their innovation. If you go to actual, again, Google and type in General Electric and Couchbase, you'll see an extensive documentary of how they've changed the way their business grow. What they wanted to do is that they have these field engineers that goes to oil rigs or remote sites. But the problem, the biggest challenge that they're facing is that they need to capture pictures, they need to have the manuals available, they need to be able to process that. And they weren't able to do that, so it was hindering their process and hindering their business requirements. So what they've done, they use Couchbase Lite, and now they're able to do that. They have the field engineers go on site, take pictures, they have the actual logs that they need to require, process that, and then when they have network connectivity, they're able to establish that and synchronize with the backend systems. Yeah.
They have a special use for IoT devices for the new engines and the new smart engines. Yeah. They added many sensors to the engines to know the status. Not related to cloud-based or not?
No, so basically that's one thing, the smart devices, and I think some people are working on that. But the project that they're talking about is the field engineers having a mobile device with them, and they go on site and they need to capture that information. So it's the field engineers for this project, but there are other projects that we're working on.
Not for big data specifically.
No, for the mobile, no, because what the mobile is that the biggest challenge that they're facing is they go to the remote site. They need to process that data, in a sense, capture that information. They don't have network connectivity, so they're not able to do anything with that. So what the mobile light enables them is to say, well, I'm going to go to, for example, point X, and I know that there's going to be certain manuals that I need to require. So they download that, they go to that website, that site, they process it, they take the images, they do the calculations, they store it on the mobile, and then when they get back, they're able to synchronize that information. All this is doing is facilitating the engineers to be able to actually be more productive.
Yeah, mainly for reporting purposes or maintenance, not for the continuous IoT devices.
No, so we have other projects such as IoT, but for this one, it's basically for the field engineers around us.
Thank you.
The other one is Ryanair. So this is another airline. What they wanted to do is that they wanted to actually, again, improve customer satisfaction. So this is in Couchbase in Europe, it's a budget airline, but they need to actually get customer satisfaction. So what they did, they used Couchbase Lite, and again, there is a video on YouTube. I don't think I have time to actually show that video, but you can actually see that video, the comparisons between the existing system that they had and the new system that they actually deployed within Couchbase. The existing system took them about 5 minutes or 6 minutes to do a reservation. With Couchbase, it reduced them down to 2 minutes. The customer satisfaction increased from 2 points down up to 5 stars, and also the number of data bandwidth that they use dropped from 80 gigabyte down to 2 gigabyte. So that's quite important. If you go to iTunes and you look at that video, it's quite impressive. It's about 3 minutes, but it's quite a powerful video. The other one is Emirates. I've basically worked with Emirates for the last 3 years. The project that started off with is that they wanted a custom experience. So in the business class, what they wanted to understand is understand the customer's behavior, the beverages. At the moment you sit down, they'll say to you, "Good morning, Mr. Ali. This is your type of beverages. Do you like your tea without milk, etc.? Do you like this type of snacks?" They provide that for you. "We are sorry that you had a problem in the previous flight." So what this is doing is getting closer to the customer, giving that customer satisfaction. And also what they're doing with the Couchbase mobile line is on the flight, it used to take about 20 minutes to actually do a food, basically, order. So the stewardess will come to you, make the order, they go back, give the actual pieces of paper to the chef. Now the moment you make the order, the information is popped up on the chef's dashboard, and that's reduced from 20 minutes down to basically 2 to 5 minutes. Again, they've won a number of awards, developers for that, the customer satisfaction is improved. Now, based on that project, the success of that project for the actual mobile line, what they're doing now, they're looking at reservation engines, the booking engines, etc., within actual Couchbase itself. So that project is extended quite extensively over a number of projects. Now, they're looking for a wide enterprise license within Couchbase, because one of the reasons is because of its simplicity. The developers, we asked them, well, are you looking at competitors now? The reason is we've tried to compare those, but the best thing about Couchbase is it's so easy to deploy. I don't have to have a headache of actually configuring it or having a master or slave. It's so simple to do. And again, these are customers. I think they're going this week to Silicon Valley because we have a conference there. But that's another example. If you're ever in Emirates flying business class and they have these tablets, then you know they're using Couchbase. If you ask them, they'll probably will tell you about that. The other one, which is very interesting, and probably most of you are aware of, is Vuitton. So again, this customer basically is a luxury customer. They want to improve customer satisfaction. They want to actually have to show the stock availability, what stocks are available, which showrooms are available, which actual products they have in there. So they're using Couchbase mobile for this. So that's a different customer. So where you're looking at, I don't have network connectivity. I want to be able to actually review what's available, what's the latest. You're able to see that on your mobile, and then you're able to sync with the backend service when you have network connectivity. So again, there's a number of customers out there that are using Couchbase in different ways, from the reservation engines to mission critical, from loggings, etc. I think that's it. So I've covered most of the stuff that I wanted to talk to you about today. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me.
We have 10 minutes for Q&A.
Can you please tell us about the infrastructure that is related to real-time analytics without affecting performance?
So analytics is, when you talk about real-time analytics, Couchbase offers, it's going to launch its analytic program. It's just in the beta version at the moment, but it's going to launch the actual GA release of analytics in version 6. So if you look at the architecture of Couchbase, the key thing within this is that you want to enable services. So within Couchbase, what we do, we have a mechanism where you can enable services. So in architecture, where you say, I want analytics now. I want nodes to actually deal with analytics. Because I have my data set in this basic number of nodes, but I want to extract and do analytics on them. So what Couchbase allows you is an infrastructure architecture where you enable services to basically enable and you can disable them. So when we do launch the analytics, you'll have a service called analytics, which will launch. Basically, it'll be set up, and then you can do your analytics online.
Does it separate the data for analytics in order to know?
Sorry, what's that?
Does it separate the data?
So what it'll do, it'll basically, with analytics, it'll extract the information it does. So you'll have an analytics part where that requires you don't want it in real time, and then you have the Couchbase real-time data. So you'll take data that it requires in the analytic engine, so it partitions that. So if you look at indexing and querying data service in the current infrastructure, the indexes are separate, the queries are separate, the data is separate. So if you're hitting the queries, it's not going to affect the actual data itself, because the queries will have a cache, and the stuff that you've already asked for, you'll have it. And if it's not available, then it'll go back to the data service and extract that.
Just one last question. Do you have development tools in order to access the database without building everything from scratch? Like, for example, for .NET, we have Entity Framework.
So there is some framework for Java that you can use Spring. For .NET, I'm not an expert in .NET, but I presume there is within Couchbase.
Thank you.
So, just another question regarding the integration with Apache Hadoop. So, what kind of technology are you using here? Are you using Apache Kafka or something in between?
So, with Hadoop, we have connectors. We have customers that are using, for example, if you look at PayPal, they'll have Hadoop for their number crunching, etc., and they'll extract that information for into Couchbase. So, we have customers that are using Spark, they're using Kafka, or you can use Couchbase Hadoop connectors, depending on what you want. So we have different flavors. The connectors are available depending on your requirements.
And which Hadoop platform or which distribution are you officially supporting?
So we support the different Hadoop infrastructure, because all it is just the Couchbase that you require and the infrastructure. So depending on your connectors that you use, we can support Hortonworks and different Hadoop infrastructures out there.
Thank you. The replication mechanism, is it a proprietary technology or not?
Sorry?
The replication mechanism between different data centers, Couch database.
Yeah.
HBase, sorry, is it a proprietary technology or?
So it is a proprietary technology. You can't just take XDCR from Couchbase. It is part of Couchbase itself, and that's one of our key differentiators from other systems out there.
Thank you, Dr. Mohammed, for this presentation, and Mr. Steve. My question is basically about the service of full text support here that is provided. And my question to you, would it be supporting Arabic language or not?
So that's a good question. So in the past, we were supporting limited languages, and now we're supporting quite a number of languages. Arabic full text search, basically, if there is a requirement for it, we will put it in that roadmap. But in the sense, I think last year, the German full text search wasn't available. There was a requirement from customers, so we added that full text search of German into Couchbase. If there is a requirement for Arabic, we'll put that into the actual roadmap. So yes, it can be introduced.
Okay, my second question is regarding edge computing. And I want to hear from you what's the supporting technologies that is supported by Couchbase.
So
Different from other companies in edge computing, especially for MENA regions, it might not have good infrastructure. So I want to hear about this.
Okay. So I think you said that the edge cases, in the sense the edge devices, is that what you're asking for?
About edge services that some cloud computing cannot support those services because they are disconnected.
Okay. So yeah. So what you're saying is that you've got edge services in the sense that they don't have network connectivity, but they need to process that data. So for example, one example you have, and you need to be able to process that data, and you don't have network connectivity, it's a health and safety issue. You need to be able to do that, extract the information, you need to audit it. So we have a number of cases that, so within Couchbase Live, you have that capability to say to yourself, okay, well, there is a business logic. That business logic requires me to do a number of processes. So even if I don't have network connectivity, there is a process that has to be taking place. So for example, I need to actually monitor a device. That device has to be monitored in this particular way. Whether they have network connectivity or not, that device has to be autonomous. It should operate on itself. You do that with Couchbase Live. It gives you all the APIs to develop the business logic to be able to do that. So in the UK and Europe, there's basically something called telematics. Telematics says, well, have this device in your car to reduce your insurance. So you put these devices in these cars, you're not going to have network connectivity when you're in remote field. So what it does, it monitors the speed, it monitors everything about you. It computes that, so the moment you have network connectivity, it says, okay, this driver has been to these places, and this is his profile, this is what he's done. And the insurance can actually profile that information. So with edge basic devices, Couchbase supports that for the mobile line, and you develop all that business logic. But then you can say to me, okay, well, there's a number of clients working on the same project, and they're writing different information. Then what happens before it hits the Couchbase server, there's something called a sync gateway, where you synchronize the data. It says, okay, well, this guy says this, and Y guy says this, how do I resolve this conflict? In there, you write your business logic to say, well, if he's basically a junior guy and there's a senior guy, but the timestamps, the senior guy has a higher timestamp, then you take that as basically the last write and you resolve that conflict. And also you can keep a chain of basically mutations that's taking place. So in that case, when you're looking at edge, we're using that quite extensively, because if you look at UPS, the way it does with all the deliveries, it's going to be probably remote places, the drivers, the actual personnel, where they don't have networking to track that information, what's happened, where it's been to, and that's where you use Couchbase Live. We also use it, I think, for sensors. If we have these manufacturers and they have units, and then basically you go from point 1 in the manufacturer to point X or point 10, and it tracks how the actual production of that information was. But it's all to do automated, and you want to automate that process, and you Couchbase Mobile.
Thank you so much. We will allow now 10 minutes for prayer time. So please come back in 10 minutes. Thank you.
Yes.